Welcome to Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast with Colin McDougall and Richard Zobel.
All right, welcome everybody. So good to be with you once again on Tough Lies, the Golfers Podcast, where we talk about the things that nobody else will talk about in the game. And I'm so pleased to be joined once again with my friend Richard Zobel. How are you, Richard?
I am good, Colin. We have a plethora of subjects to talk about. Top line stories. Look forward to getting into it.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. Like this week, just from a pure story standpoint, I thought the Ryder Cup, when our first episode would be the biggest one, but this might be the biggest. I mean, in terms of pure stories. And so, yeah, absolutely. Let's get into it. So obviously we had what happened with Morikawa at Pebble Beach, which I'm dying to ask you about, given our previous conversations. We actually have a deep dive that I think is really worth discussing around Augusta National and its inclusion in the Epstein files, uniquely and interestingly.
Woo.
Woo is right. And I was saying before we jumped on air, I just love good stories in golf. And I think that's what we root for. It's part of what frustrates me about the game is that I think there's often a blandness about the game, a sameness about the players. This week is far from the case. And Anthony Kim, who, I spent part of last night trying to think about who they would cast in the movie about his story, because there's most surely going to be one at some point. But Anthony Kim, to get everyone acquainted with what happened, was playing at the biggest event on the LIV Tour in Adelaide. It's the equivalent of the Players, as I'm told, on a wonderful golf course. He was in the final group, but quite a few shots behind Jon Rahm and Bryson DeChambeau. So one would think that it was a duel between those two. And Anthony Kim, who, we'll get into his backstory, but at 40 years old, hasn't played on the PGA Tour since 2012. He shoots 63, birdieing, I think it was 4 of the last 5.
9 birdies, yep.
9 birdies to win by 3 shots over those two guys who are clearly still top 10 in the world players, maybe top 5, and sort of just runs them over to with electric play. He made every putt practically that he looked at. He struck the ball beautifully. And yeah, I'm not sure there will be a bigger story this year in golf than what we witnessed this weekend. And I couldn't think of a better story to start off. So tell me, what did you think of the whole story, Richard?
Well, the story is unfolding as we speak. I think the Anthony Kim, AK, or AK-47, as he was known back when he was still playing well on the PGA Tour in his youth, and not the brightest person, I might add, at the time, I think. But the story is quite phenomenal. Yesterday in LIV Adelaide, he made 9 birdies, as you mentioned. He shoots 63 and win. I think that there's no question about it. It's going to be a 2020 documentary. It'll be a Netflix film, as it should be. How he went about his business and recovering from a path that, it was like he was already on the path to suicide. He just wasn't dead yet. And now as he comes back and he got inspired in rehab, and I think it's a combination of alcoholism and drugs. When you just, let me ask you this question. When you first saw Anthony Kim in the past year and saw his face, what did you think? And I'll give you my answer when
I heard about his joining LIV before I physically saw what he looked like, and I was floored, honestly. To me, it looked like...
What came to mind?
Pain, I would say, and sort of, the adjective, I would say pain. It just struck me as somebody who's so been through the ringer of life that, I just thought, it seemed at the time, I would say I I was negative about it because it seemed very much like a publicity stunt for Liv.
Well,
That's what it seemed like.
yeah, well, when I looked at his face, and what I saw is plastic surgery in an effort to reconstruct his sinuses that used to be full of drugs, and how it blew apart physically inside his eye, his sinus cavity, the bridge of his nose was collapsed. So I went, oh my God, this guy must have just been in hell with his drug abuse. This like the drugs that he put up his nose. That's what comes to my mind. And I think it was just like, oh my God. And then, to hear his story and after his winning and performing the way he did from the doldrums that he was on, as I mentioned, this suicide path, he just wasn't dead yet. But give this guy, this is where the story is, the human, impact, where he in recovery, he said, if I ever get out of this, I was going to, and the fact that he got married and family was so important to him, and his daughter gave him purpose. And I can't imagine a story unfolding that he has, and going on to win, and then having a purpose to be responsible to help those who are in such a bad place. So when you see the guys like Colin Morikawa last year, keep that as a note, that, being kind of self-centered and so forth, it's quite the contrast and quite the boon for Liv Golf right now. He's delivered some value that is just unforeseen.
I mean, yes, the story of him just ending up in that tournament. In Liv, the top 48 sort of make it from one year to the next, and then they kind of treat it like soccer, where they have what they call it, where they relegated. They're relegated to a lower level.
Right.
He was relegated.
Yes.
He won a tournament in relegation, which sort of brought him up to a level, and then our good friend Patrick Reed decided that he was going to carve his own path back to the PGA Tour, leave Liv Golf, which left a spot open on Dustin Johnson's team, which Anthony Kim filled, which got him into this tournament, and then he goes out and shoots lights out on Sunday and wins it. I mean, it is nothing short of spectacular.
Yeah, he earned it. I mean, he crawled through mud and muck and faced death and suicide, I'm sure. Gary Williams said it very nicely and succinctly in the Golf Channel. And as a person who has been sober, as he was a person who's been sober for many years, he speaks from that depression and that. So the impact that it's making on people is everyday life. And you're right. He got relegated off Liv event in September, and then he had to go back to a Liv promotional event where there were 78 players. It was this Liv promotional event was Liv's kind of Q school to get players on it, and it was won by Richard Teeley, a Canadian, and then second by Bjorn Holmgren, and Anthony Kim finished third, and it got him back onto the Liv. They played at Black Diamond Ranch down in Florida. So this was just last month. And to see him come off like this and the manner in which he did, it's the most heartfelt story that you could imagine. And we're going to wait to see. I think that, and the benefit for Liv here, like, keep in mind, Liv is paying John Rahm hundreds of millions of dollars. They're paying Bryson DeChambeau hundreds of millions of dollars. They relegated AK-47 off, and now Anthony Kim has just delivered the value to Liv like no other player could possibly deliver. When it becomes a Netflix film or whatever, this might be the lifeline that starts Liv and that can sustain Liv. So, good for AK, the Anthony Kim. It's a story that we all touched. It all touched our hearts, and we get to see what happens moving forward. We're all rooting for him.
Richard, what I want to understand is, I gather there's a path for AK to make it back to the PGA Tour, which I never thought I would say, but how can he possibly do it?
Well, I think there will be a path. I think Pat Perez set that path in motion on the PGA Tour when they allowed so the path that the top four guys, they used their previous major championship victory after 2022. If you've won a major since 2022, there's a path for you, and you have to pay a fine. Pat Perez, who didn't qualify in that, he is getting his path back by sitting out a year. He has to sit out a season before going back. Now, he had a past champions category. Anthony Kim has a past champions category as well. So I've got to assume that the PGA Tour, that he could take the same path Pat Perez is, sit out a year, and that's if Anthony Kim wants to come back to the PGA Tour. I think the PGA Tour will want him badly for all the right and wrong reasons. But I think that's the path. And now at the same time, right now, given what he's delivered to Liv, will Liv make him an offer that's commensurate to the value he delivered Liv? That's the question right there. And will he take that? Or, he has a path if he wants it, but I think that, we'll see what happens with Liv.
It's going to be one of the stories that I think we track throughout the year. There's a handful of them we talked about before, the transition from PGA Tour from nonprofit to for-profit. There's, Scheffler, there are stories, but this one has percolated up towards the top in terms of, our interest levels, I think, to follow it.
And let's let our listeners know kind of the theory, and I think because of non-disclosure agreements that go around, initially, the initial agreement that Anthony Kim made with an insurance company, allegedly, he hurt himself, he had some surgeries, and he contemplated leaving the tour to collect a $10 million allegedly amount, but he would never have to play golf again. And the story is that's when Anthony Kim took that $10 million, not knowing that the revenues on the PGA Tour for stars was going to explode in the tens and hundreds of millions of dollars. He took that route, apparently, allegedly, and then dove down deep in there's some things that can really happen from people who I know personally who have been down that path of addiction, that you can burn through $10 million if you're a drug addict real fast in the decisions that you make. So, and now then, he's come back and he's going to have to break that agreement with the insurance company, or depending on whether that alleged agreement has taken place or not, and deal with it. But that'll be a factor into the movie as well. So the history and the depth of despair is very interesting for a lot of people to figure out.
Yeah, it's going to be a fascinating story to watch. Now, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about what happened on the PGA Tour as well. Pebble Beach. You and I both have some good Pebble Beach stories to share, which I've been looking forward to. And our friend Colin Morikawa came out on top with, I think, what could be described as sort of great ball striking, average to good putting, which, being such a great ball striker as he is, sort of led him to the victory chair, and but some fantastic play, including a almost near epic comeback from Scottie Scheffler, and some other great play. So any thoughts on the PGA Tour this week?
Yeah, well, other than being at a shrine of golf, Pebble Beach.
Yes.
That we can talk a little bit about that, but yes, Colin Morikawa's play, shooting, what did he shoot? 62, 67. Pretty impressive stuff. His ball striking, he's a remarkable ball striker. But again, what their subject is coming is what Colin has done since his debacle last year around the Arnold Palmer Invitational and the Players Championship, when he snubbed the golf media, and then he went on and unfortunately said, I don't owe anyone anything. And I think it haunted him. Karma is a bitch, as they say, and he had a bad year in 2025. And I think,
Right.
he talked about in his interview, and we try and glean between that lines because I don't think Colin is a real full disclosure guy. But he did have, so there was some significant evidence that he's made this turn. Now, first of all, he talked about his team. He's got a great team around him, particularly leading off by his teacher, Rick Sessinghaus, who's a sports psychologist, who's a renowned, very smart and very renowned instructor, and particularly, so I think he's helped them significantly. So Colin Morikawa, birdied 15 and 16, and then, got put on hold because of some rules, and he sat there for 30 minutes before hitting his second shot. Or excuse me, let me jump to the 17th. He birdies 15 and 16 to grab the lead. And then I like how CBS fixed the camera right on him. And Frank Nobilo, who's a good friend of mine, stated, "It's the change of attitude that it could happen that quickly for Morikawa." So that was very evident. And then after Morikawa wins the tournament, makes a birdie in the last hole, wins by a couple, and Amanda Balionis asks him about and says, it's hard to think that Colin said, it's hard to think that you're still the same person, just a little more wiser, just a bit more mature. So he's talking about himself, but he doesn't quite apologize for his what he actually said, but it is some indication that he's making this turnaround. And I think he said that, back when he first came on tour, he looked at things too far ahead. I think I'm going to change my perspective now, and that's staying in the moment. So yes, I think he's making some perspective changes, and it's helping him, and I think it's because of his team. And we all like to see a more mature Colin Morikawa because we think he's great for the game.
Yeah. The sheer talent's undeniable.
It is.
The guy can just absolutely play, and yeah, it's there is a phrase, show me your friends, I'll show you who you are. And I think in this instance, it may be a bit more like who are you surrounding yourself as your team, which every pro golfer these days has. And clearly he's added or augmented his team in a way that's enabled him to grow, not just in his play on the course, but in probably a way that has enabled him to rejoin the winner's circle. You can get into a bit of a mental spiral and point fingers everywhere else but internally, and it sounds to me like he's kind of recognized that maybe the answer is from within, and I'm going to take some ownership of my past, and I'm going to grow from it. And it's clearly shown in how he's been able to comport himself this week.
Yeah, there's some lovely sayings about that. Youth is wasted on the young. I think because a couple of old guys, you and I, can relate to that. The antics that Colin Morikawa, I guess, came out with, and his expectations and his perspective and where it was, his sense of entitlement was shown, obviously. Anthony Kim as a young guy, just making the decisions to party in the manner in which he did that set him on the track. This is where the meaning youth is wasted on the young, and now we're seeing them have a bigger purpose, and both of them, and it reflects in all levels of players when you and in life. And so those things are really important because we all know that golf and life parallel each other.
Yeah, 100%. And I'm very much looking forward to seeing that continued growth, because it's a continuum, So I think it'll be very interesting to see in even a few years' time, Morikawa's perspective on his behavior, and the change and what it did for him both on and off the course.
Yeah, exactly.
Now, any other thoughts on the golf tournament exactly? Because then I think we've got a couple Pebble Beach stories to share, and I think I'm very interested in yours, and hopefully listeners will enjoy.
Yeah, as most people do, when you play Pebble Beach a lot, you fall in love with it. It's just so spectacular. Not like Spanish Spyglass down the road, which is brutally hard. As Jack always said, Jack Nicklaus that is, he says, when you play Pebble Beach, it's like it inspires you to play golf. When you play Spyglass Hill, it inspires you to go fishing. But that's a Jack Nicklaus quote. But I've fallen in love with Pebble Beach. I played in so many, and played well at Pebble Beach in so many AT&Ts and Bing Crosby's and U.S. Opens. You know, in '92, I shot 72, 72, 72, and got into contention in the U.S. Open at Pebble Beach, and that's when the 40-mile-an-hour plus winds gusted in. Tom Kite won, and the average score in the U.S. Open that day was 78. Wow. Scott Simpson, U.S. Open, he shot 88. Payne Stewart shot 87. I played well, shot 80. I was paired with Azinger in the final group. And it was just a brutal golf course. Whereas yesterday, like, there were a bunch of 30s shot in the front nine at Pebble Beach this past weekend. So the golf course played really easy. But my fondest memory at Pebble Beach was 2000, the U.S. Open. And that's when, in 2000, I was trying to get back on tour, and I had established this MindTrak system that I was learning to recondition my mind to detach emotionally from the scorer. And I was 3 months into this program, and it was starting to get some traction. So I had a horrible round on the third round, shooting 80, and then I went out there early on the Sunday morning at Pebble Beach, the Sunday of the U.S. Open. And I said, look, this is Pebble Beach. It's a beautiful day. Tiger's doing his thing. And that's when I went out and I shot 30 on the front nine in the U.S. Open on Sunday. And that was my aha moment when my MindTrak reconditioning to detach myself emotionally from the results, I gained that freedom and was able to do it. And my caddy said to me right after that, we're walking down the 10th fairway, he said, do you know what you shot? And this is where the aha moment really happened. And I said, no, I don't know what I shot. Now, can you imagine that? And he said, you shot 30. And I thought about it a little bit, and this is where the aha moment happened. I thought about it a little more, and I said to him, I still don't care. And all I cared about was literally performing and attaching my emotions to the two key performance markers, my assessment and my execution of every shot, and that was it, and it empowered me. Shot 39 on the back nine, made a double on 10, but there were only like 3 rounds in the 60s that day, and it was the birth of MindTrak golf.
Oh wow, what a great story! I love that, and so impactful. It is that detachment. I mean, I would want to circle back as we get towards the end, because I think, when we talk about Pebble, I think the course is inevitably, and your score is inevitably tied to the weather conditions.
Yes.
It's just a place, because it's along the coastline, where the weather can play a huge factor, but not just, the weather itself, your mental ability to manage those adverse conditions. And to me, I think that's something that we can all learn from. So we'll circle back on that. I did want to share, I can't resist sharing my own Pebble Beach story.
I want to hear this. Tell me about your Pebble Beach story, please.
Okay. So I should qualify this for those who don't know, from a playing ability standpoint, I am in nowhere within the 1,000 yards of my fellow host here, Richard. I didn't play on the PGA Tour. I did play Division II college golf at the University of Tampa. I still play. I think it's always relative. You play I feel like I play at an okay level, but lots of people would say, "Oh, you're a very, very good player." Anyway, so the story of Pebble is I got married in the year 2000. My wife and I decided to do the full sort of honeymoon, like literally get married, fly out the next morning, go on a honeymoon. Our honeymoon plan was to go out to California. So we did a couple of days in San Francisco and Napa and Lake Tahoe, and then the conclusion was going to be a round of golf at Pebble Beach, stay at the Inn at Spanish Bay, and a really wonderful conclusion. So and I had a friend in the golf travel business who hooked me up with a discounted tee time where they guaranteed we'd get the round in, but it would be at the twilight rate, because a young married couple, you got to save on costs. Anyway, so we get out there, and I'm a single. My wife wasn't playing. She had back surgery, so she was going to drive the cart. So I get paired with 3 other people. And it was a nice married couple. And then there was this other guy we got paired with. And you are a good friend of, I know, of Fred Couples. You can, when you talk to him in future, just tell him there is an absolute doppelganger out there of Fred Couples.
You got paired with Fred
golf
Couples he was a single.
I got paired,
right?
I got paired with, he was the other single in the group, in the four of us. But he was an absolute dead ringer for Fred Couples.
Oh,
like the walk, the look, everything. You know, it was eerie almost how similar he looked.
Oh, so it wasn't Fred Couples.
It was not Fred Couples. But dead ringer, but the mirror opposite from a golfing ability standpoint. He was quite literally the worst. And I'm going to swear right now, he's the worst fucking golfer I've ever seen. Like, it was terrible. But he was clearly, so he's dressed to the nines, and he had called ahead of time. You know, they have caddies out there, or you can, ride, take a cart or whatever. And he had called ahead and organized to have the caddy at Pebble Beach at the time. Jerry was his name. And Jerry was the guy that, when Bill Clinton went to play, that's who would caddy for Bill Clinton, sort of thing. Like, he was like around a long time, very story guy. Anyways, so we start to play, and my wife is driving the car because she wants to enjoy the experience with me. And I hadn't played in months because of the wedding. And so I didn't know how I was going to play, but I started the first hole. I make a nice par, second hole, par, third hole, par. I'm like I'm like, holy cow. Like, I thought I was going to shoot a million because it was Pebble Beach and I hadn't played in months. But anyway, so we get to the fourth hole. And by that point, we had started to call, my wife and I had started to call this guy Freddie Couples. We just started to Freddie. And so, and he was wearing like a golf, I think it's still kind of a thing, but he was wearing, white pants, like a lot of pro golfers would, and so I'm par, like I'm fourth hole, fifth hole, par. We get to the sixth tee. We're on the tee deck there, and my wife, I'm walking to the tee with my driver. She looks at me, she goes, I don't think Fred Couples is wearing any underwear.
Okay,
bogey.
Elaborate.
Bogey. I mean, I'm playing as good as I could possibly play on this golf course. And she's like, he's not wearing any underwear. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, I don't have the mental strength to handle my wife on our honeymoon observing that Fred Couples over here is not wearing it.
Well, let's put it this way. Fred Couples has an effect on women and men as well. I mean, men want to be like him, and women want to be with him.
That's right. So it was just so funny, like that comment, and immediately off the rails. And then I fortunately, recovered, and I played really well, and ended up, I think I shot 74, 2 bogeys, 16 pars, which for Pebble Beach for me was as good as I could humanly play. It was really nice that towards the end, Jerry came over to me, and literally, I don't know what our boy Freddie Couples shot, but it would have been north of 130.
Oh wow!
To shoot a decent score while you're playing with somebody shooting like that is also a challenge.
This guy's probably traumatized from being a lookalike to Freddie Couples and the expectations that may come with it. That's his mental challenge right there. That's probably adding to why he's such a poor player.
Yeah, it was. But anyways, I thought the highest compliment I could get, I thought, was when Jerry came over and he's like, man, I wish I was caddying for you.
That's a good story.
You might have got a big tip from Fred Couples for putting up with all this terrible play, but it was one of those, like, it was almost like playing with, from a playing standpoint, like Spalding from Caddyshack, where he hits it. It's like, that never, rat parts. And he's, like, it was really, really funny. Anyways, so we finished in the dark. I literally parred 17 and 18
What'd you shoot?
I should say, in complete the dark, 74.
That's good. Awesome.
Yeah, 74. It's no 30 on the front nine like at the U.S. Open like some people I know, but for me it was quite good, and I was very happy. And it's one of those stories that whenever we talk, my wife and I are with friends and we're talking golf.
You got to tell that
story
one.
comes up. Yeah, I got to tell that one.
Tell that.
Thanks for listening. It's it's just one of our favorite stories. So, So I do want to. So staying on Pebble for a moment and talking about weather conditions. Maybe we can touch on, I think it's probably a good time to get into the mental side of playing in tough weather. because I
Yeah.
think it's one of those things. I think that's an aspect of playing the game where your mental, the tougher the weather, the more important your mental ability is,
Your mind plays into it.
comes to the fore. Yes.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious on your thoughts on how to manage in tough weather.
Well, if you
from a mental
want
standpoint.
good weather, Northern California, the best time of year to do it is in the fall, late fall.
Okay.
So in February, it's often, the weather gets bad that we watch today in this atmospheric river that's hitting California right now, and it'll flow into Riviera this week coming up as well. It can get some bad weather. And also, too, when the U.S. Open is always played in June, the marine layer comes in and makes it cold, like in June. So U.S. Opens have that, and the golf course plays long and soft, and when it does, it plays very easy. But U.S. Opens are different at when they're played at Pebble Beach, and there's been a whole bunch of them, and it's going to be there next year. So the conditions of cold and wet, when they make well, first of all, your mindset must be you have to have acceptance. You may not like it. You don't have to like it. But what you have to do is accept it. If you don't accept those challenges and the difficulty of fumbling around with wet hands and your wet grip and towels and umbrella and so forth, and getting wet and cold and stiff with, you're going to have a bad day. And so those who have this, and this is, we constantly talk about, if you want to optimize performance, you have to have zero expectations and this high level of acceptance. You must accept. You don't have to like it. You have to accept it. And when you bring that attitude, and you accept the bad bounces or the bad lies that are going to come or the bad executions, you deal with it as best you can, and then it becomes the person who has the strongest internal fortitude, the best mindset. That's the person who has the advantage. So Morikawa spoke about that he didn't like playing in bad weather. He got mad and he was frustrated. But when you become a professional golfer, you must accept this. That's the trick, and you have to know and play to your strengths. When you're confronted with those situations, you got to beat the guy next to you from a mindset perspective.
Yeah, it's got to be. I imagine that when you see someone who you're playing with who's clearly sort of disgruntled about the weather, especially if you're playing a match or if you're playing in a tournament or whatever it would be, and you have an attitude that's like, yeah, so what? It's, I accept it's going to be a challenging day out there, and I'm going to do my best, and I'm going to have fun with it. And, there are bigger problems in the world. You're probably, well ahead of your playing compatriot in terms of what the outcome will be.
And the best thing you should say to yourself is, yes, it's going to be tough out there. It's going to be a grind, but somebody's going to win this. Why not me?
Yeah.
And then, you do everything you can to bolster your perspective, and the better your perspective, again, it's that extra club in the bag. That's the most important piece of equipment you have is our mind. Yeah. We just have to learn to use it properly as a proper tool.
Yeah.
Today's episode of Tough Lies is brought to you by Fairway Foresight, the AI-powered digital caddy, yardage, and strategy app for golfers who want to stop making the same mistake every single round. Fairway Foresight doesn't just give you a number, it analyzes your patterns, your shot tendencies, their dispersion, and decision making. And then it shows you what you should do, not what you wish would happen. If you ever thought, I probably shouldn't hit driver here, and hey, who hasn't? But I'm going to hit driver anyways, this app is the one for you.
Now, here at Tough Lies, we are not afraid of talking about some subject areas that I think most others in the golf and in media and so forth are inclined to shy away from. And I put this on our run sheet, and I want to make sure I frame this in the lens that I think it deserves. But obviously, and let me half step back. Yours truly, I'm a politics junkie as a side thing. I enjoy watching, in particular, U.S. politics. Always have.
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously particularly interesting these days. This weekend I was spending some time taking in a podcast, a New York Times podcast, and in it mentioned Augusta National as it pertains to the Epstein files. And I started to
Whoa.
listen to it, and I was exactly
Whoa.
whoa,
Tell me
I
more.
know. Yeah, exactly. So it's so the backstory on it is essentially there if you there was an encapsulation. I thought it was a good encapsulation of sort of Jeffrey Epstein as a whole, which is to say he was basically kind of a broker. You know, whether it was financial, whether it was other things, he was a broker. He was the person who sort of connected you with people, and he was surrounded with all kinds of the elite of the world, and he could do things for people who, even though they had lots of money, might not be able to get fine. So he was a problem solver for people, even though they had a lot of money, you know, and they wanted something they may not be able to get. In this case, there's a lawyer in New York at a very prestigious law firm named Brad Karp who wanted to become a member at Augusta National. And he reached out to Jeffrey Epstein by email, and sort of that was kind of what came through as the request, which, you know, for someone like Epstein, it's just it's like trading cards, you know, like I'll help you out over here, and I know I'm going to get help from you down the line that I might, you know, when I might need it.
Quid pro quo.
And quid pro quo. And so Jeffrey Epstein turns around and reaches out to Steve Bannon, who, for those who follow U.S. politics, would know he's he might be so far right on the political spectrum you'd have to look left to see him, but he's well out there and an avowed, you know, white nationalist, and the response, and basically, so Epstein reached out to Bannon saying, "Can you help with this?" Which is a, you know, of all the people to go and ask, you have to wonder, well, why would they go to this guy? But
Yeah, exactly.
because it's not like he's a golfer, you know. And his response was, I will try to help make this happen. Again, sort of, it's all brokering, right? Because I know if I help you with this, then you'll help me with something down the line. Anyhow, but in his response, he mentions in a very in very negative terminology the nature of the people who run Augusta from a race standpoint, and which is really something to hear it coming from him. Anyhow, so in my mind, I think for us the discussion points are around this, and that is Augusta National continually puts itself out there, I would say, as a voice of leadership in the game of golf. They do a variety of things, not just running the tournament, the Masters. They have other things they do, and they have people in the leadership roles at Augusta National who see themselves as kind of stewards of the game and people who should be listened to. And what I find objectionable, or I shouldn't say objectionable, but concerning, I would say, because I don't truly know, is I struggle with the idea that this private club, who, if you ask them who the members are, they won't tell you the full roster. It's not published anywhere. They kind of run things behind the scenes how they feel like, but also want to have the gravitas in golf that should lend itself to people like people in the media asking challenging questions. And I forever have felt they are under challenged as an organization, as many of the other leadership organizations in golf, when it comes to really asking tough questions. And so I wanted to get your viewpoint, and I guess the last thing I would say on this before we discuss it a little further is, you know, what is the right place, if any, for an organization like Augusta National in this, you know?
Okay.
You know, yeah. Why don't we start with that and see where we go?
Well, first of all, I think you're right in the aspect of, you know, who the hell does Augusta National think they are? I felt that, and it predominantly is based on the evidence in their past history. That's you know, in bigotry, and I don't think they've atoned from that position ever. It started from their founding chairman, Clifford Roberts, and he had said some nasty things about, white people and black people and who's playing and who's caddying at Augusta National. Just horrible stuff. And they haven't come off that. And yet the Masters, that is marketed around the world as the greatest major championship in the world, it gives them power. And they negotiated heavy-handedly with their television contracts. They're only one-year contracts, so they've got the hammer. And I didn't like the fact when back in 2009, when Tiger Woods had his personal debacle on television, unfold in public as his affairs against his wife type of thing. Hootie Johnson, the chairman then of Augusta National, stood at the podium and lectured Tiger Woods, and it just caught me the wrong way. And I just said, who the hell do you think you are, in that position? So I don't like the fact that a private golf club has such power in the game of golf. Like, I'm a member of Marine Drive Golf Club and have been for 50 years. Why can't Marine Drive have a say in the golf industry? But here's one thing, jumping back to the politics of that. Number one, that Fred Ridley, the chairman of Augusta National, if he knew, he wouldn't touch Steve Bannon with a 10-foot pole. And I think that rationale to think that Epstein could have leverage to influence that, there is no way that Augusta National would run in the opposite direction. And number two, they don't understand how this works. I had a good friend of mine and played Augusta. He was a member, one of the only Canadians to be members at Augusta National. And if Augusta National senses that you're applying or knocking on the door to become a member, you will be banned. It's strictly by invitation. They seek you out.
Right.
You don't apply. Right. If you apply, that is a death warrant. That will not happen. So, and Steve Bannon, Augusta National, it doesn't make sense. Fred Ridley, who's a smart guy and the chairman and doing a good as job as he can be doing as chairman, he wouldn't go anywhere near the politics of a Steve Bannon or an Epstein or anything like that. They keep it on the real low.
Yeah. Yes. My concern would be, with the trove of documents that have been released around Epstein, there are all kinds of moneyed elites who are mentioning them, and to varying degrees. What I would want to know is, are those who are mentioned in those files who overlap with the membership roster of Augusta National, are they going to be kept as members? So, for example, Bill Gates, as I understand it, is a member of Augusta National. He is mentioned prominently in the Epstein files. Yeah. I don't know, so for me, it's that duality of we want to be seen over here as stewards of this wonderful game, but we want to everything that happens behind. We're also a private club that you can't ask any questions about. And for me, that's where the conflict lies. The other thing I would say is, I am concerned with how they have sort of very craftily, I would say, managed their relationship with media, which is to say, I think a lot of people wouldn't necessarily know this. There's a massive media center at Augusta National, and every year there is a lottery that is held where media members get to play Augusta National the day after the Masters is over. That, to me, is a clear effort to try to manipulate the stories or the questions that are asked there. I mean, I don't know how you could see it any other way, given how restrictive they are about who plays the course. They sort of do this thing with the media every year, and I haven't seen. I don't watch. I must confess, I don't watch all the pressers of the media with the leadership of Augusta National, but I can't recall any sort of pickup of any tough questioning of the leadership of Augusta National in a very, very long time.
Yeah, I think your point is taken right. They do leverage their situation. I mean, the history speaks for itself. Back in whatever, I think in late 60s, Jack Whitaker got fired from, his comments when he referred to the patrons on the 18th hole as a mob. They turfed his butt out, and and
McCord, right?
and Gary McCord the same thing, and saying that they don't roll the greens, they bikini wax them. But I did notice and take notice this year when Augusta comes around, and when the chairman's report and he sits down to the media, I think they're very careful. You're very right. But Fred Ridley's a real smart individual. He's a former U.S. amateur champion as well, and so how he answers those questions, I think they're going to get a little more tougher. They're not quick to hit the hard questions, but I think there'll become a question: will Anthony Kim be invited to the Masters? Excuse me, as a special invitation. Maybe we'll see something like that, but I think you're right. They typically have done that. I think they have to recognize they better not do that as much as they used to, because back in decades ago and generations ago, that was acceptable. Today, we're moving further away from it, and it's not so much. So I think that we'll have to wait and see, and hopefully someone has the fortitude to ask those tough questions at the press conference.
Yeah. Well, I would. Yeah, that's a great word for it. Fortitude. I mean, I was prepping this episode, out on a walk with my wife, talking about, and the question came up. Who do you recall that would ask questions of that nature and not be afraid of recrimination or whatever? And to me, the quick one that came to mind was Dave Perkins from the Toronto Star. I mean, that guy. He would ask a tough question and write a tough article, and the very next day he'd walk into, let's say it was about the Blue Jays or whatever it might be, and he'd walk right in and he just did not give a shit what you thought. And I don't see anybody in the current sort of media in golf that has anywhere close to that sort of level of journalistic focus. I'm just going to ask what I think should be asked, and I don't care what happens to me. And so for me, I would love for somebody to stand up there, have the courage to sit there and say, have you removed any members from the club this year because of their inclusion in the Epstein files?
I think that's one hell of a good question. I would like to. I want to know that answer, and I not only know. Yeah. I don't think you're going to get the answer you want. I think. Fred Ridley will say, well, that's our business, and the business of the Masters is the Masters. And I think that's their lack of disclosure. That's why they shouldn't be part of and have the power that they have in the world of golf, is because they're a private club.
Yes.
I mean,
exactly.
Let's understand the situation. Let's ask those questions. Let's find out who the members are and if they are involved with the. I think it's a good question. I think it needs to be asked, and I think you're right. I want to hear not only the answer. I want to hear what if it has anything to do with disclosure.
Yeah. I think it would just be, again, or the other simple answer is remove yourself as an organization from trying to have any sort of impact or sway on the stewardship of the game. Like you can be a private club and run things how you want to run them. That's,
exactly.
That's totally fine. But I don't think you can do it at the same time and try to sort of say, oh, we're the people you should look to in terms of where the direction of the game ought to be.
They have to remove the hypocrisy if they want to earn that spot of responsibility.
Yeah, that's a great line. I have a question, and I think what we're going to do going forward, we have some great listeners out there, and one of them passed along a question, and I think it's probably a great opening question to a segment we should have, which is if people want to ask questions of you or of us or the show or things or topics they want to bring before, they can follow us at Tough Lies Podcast on Instagram. They can certainly reach out to us on our website, which we will post. We're going to share the episode on other platforms. So please reach out with any questions you have. The first question, which probably should have been the most obvious and probably should have been the one that I asked in episode 1, is you have a nickname. And Danny from Sonoma, California is like, how did Richard get the name Disco Dick? So I'm going to leave it there and let you answer that question.
Well, let me preface it with this, that it shouldn't have been Disco Dick. It should have been Rockin' Richard, because I didn't listen to disco music. I like good old-fashioned rock and roll. It was the Eagles. It was Led Zeppelin. It was Bob Seger. I wasn't much of a Springsteen fan, but I loved hard.
The Bee Gees weren't on the playlist.
Bee Gees weren't on the playlist. No. Yes, Fragile. Emerson, Lake and Palmer. So basically what it was is my rookie year. I get onto the PGA Tour after 4 years playing at BYU. We win the NCAA, win the Canadian Amateur. I go to the qualifying school in 81, get my tour card, so for 1982. And everything turned around. I'm on the tour, and it's the last year of Monday qualifying. So that means if you're a PGA Tour member and you weren't exempt, top 60, you had to Monday qualify every week. And if you qualified, you got in the tournament. If you made the cut, you'd be exempt from the following Monday qualifying, so forth. Anyway, I hated Monday qualifying, and it took me, after 6 months, my mind was I was in full-blown golf insanity. The expectations and the anxiety. I couldn't sleep Sunday night, which meant I couldn't perform on Mondays. And when I got into a tournament, I missed the cut. So I'm into 6 months on my rookie year on the PGA Tour, and I've only made 2 cuts. And I don't feel like I belong. I don't feel good about myself. I'm in a bad place. I'm staying by myself. I'm not going out to the golf course because I don't feel like I belong. And I'm in a spiral down. So in an effort, and I knew that my game was good, but I knew what was holding me back was my anxiety that I was putting on myself to perform. Expectations. I've got to do this. I've got to shoot this. I have to do that. And that's created this internal confusion that I call golf insanity. I had to stop this golf insanity. So I said to myself, well, I listened to this Sony Walkman and listen to music, and it has a calming effect on me. I said to myself, and I had this conversation, I said, why don't you wear the Sony Walkman in a golf tournament? And I went, hey, my intuition said, that's a great idea. I think it'll calm me down. So the night before the first round of the Western Open, I go, okay, or it's in Chicago, and I have this Sony Walkman out, and I went, oh man, I can't do this. What if I shoot 80? What are they going to think of me? Are the people going to laugh? This is a huge risk. And I didn't do it, and I go out and shoot 80 something in the qualifying. Now I'm really pissed off with myself, because I'm not pissed off at myself because I played poorly, but pissed off at myself because I was a chicken, and I chickened out. So I vowed I'm going to do this next week in Milwaukee. So the night before Milwaukee, the Wednesday night, I have the same trepidations. My mind is thinking, what if I do this? And my ego is trying to protect itself. What if I look like an idiot? What will the other people think? And all that kind of stuff. I said, well, let's just go off and make a game time decision. So we tee off the first hole. There actually was the 10th hole at Tuckaway Country Club. I'm playing with Ronnie Black and Larry Rinker. And I wait till we get off the tee, and I pull out the headphones, and I slap it on my head, and the Eagles is on, and I'm listening to Hotel California. And I instantly just go, oh my God, is this going to be heaven or is this going to be hell? Like literally. And so I start playing well. I'm 1 under, 2 under, 3 under, 4, 5 under par. And I'm getting to the 18th hole, which is the 9th hole, my 18th hole. I'm 7 under par. I'm leading the golf tournament. And I get in and I shoot the easiest 65, 7 under par in my life. And the officials, before I go into the scoring tent, and the official goes, Richard, come here. We need to speak to you. What are you listening to on your Walkman? And I said, music. He says, are you listening to any golf lessons? I went, no. And I said, that would disqualify me. So I'm going, oh my God, I'm in trouble here. So they call PJ Boatwright at the USGA to find out if this is legal. He comes back and says, there's nothing wrong. There's nothing in the rules that says you can't listen to music. So I go on, I'm leading the tournament after the first round. I'm leading the golf tournament after the second round. And I'm kind of going, and I'm leading the golf tournament after the third round into the fourth round with 4 holes to go. I'm still tied for the lead. And then I broke my bubble of now keep in mind, so when it was my turn to hit, I would take the headphones off, I would assess my shot, I'd execute the shot, and before that ball landed, I'd have the headphones back on my head. The playing partners who with me, they'd say nice shot. I wouldn't hear them because I had my headphones on, so I didn't say thank you. So it pissed off a lot of guys. So that was part of the problem. So anyway, I get through this, and I bogey 3 of the last 4 holes in a double. I inevitably finished tied 5th after leading it with 4 holes to go. So the story was, oh my God, is this ever a psychological game? Just the fact that I listened to music took me from a rookie tour player who could not make a Monday qualifying and could not make a cut to leading the tournament comfortably for 4 days. In that moment, that's when I said, this is completely psychological. And from that moment, I moved forward to go down this path in my professional golf career to learn about our mind, because that, the psychological aspect of our mind literally determines how happy we are, or sad we are, or successful we are, or the proper perspective. And that's why the best thing you need to do is to change your perspective, not your golf swing.
Yeah. Wow. What a great story. I mean, I have my own image of you back then with the Walkman on, and for those young listeners out there, Walkman is what you used to listen to. It had wires and a tape cassette player, and you'd strap it to your side, and that was sort of thing back in that era. It's all obviously digital and through phones and so forth now. But,
and based on that wire and the Walkman and all that, the cover of my book, Zocology, Change Your Perspective, Not Your Swing, that image is on the cover of the book, which is coming out May 19th.
Oh, amazing. Yeah. That's that's my image of you from back then. Obviously, we didn't know each other then, but certainly I knew the nickname and I knew the Walkman.
Disco Dick was born.
But the Disco Dick was born. Yeah, I mean, and I would say thrilled to know that it was rock music. That's certainly my bag too. So it's great. And I was trying to think of good lines from the Eagles that I could sort of use there.
And in the book, I tell the story intimately and using the other Pink Floyd's "Comfortably Numb." When you lose your mind and break through the wall, and some people like Anthony Kim became comfortably numb with his drug abuse and his alcoholism. And I broke through that wall being comfortably numb with just the change of my perspective. But it's, being present. People get, how they get present? People who with a bad perspective, alcohol, drugs, that will take you to that present moment where you detach emotionally from all those other expectations that hold us back.
Yeah. Well, we had Joe, our super producer, free agent Joe, he had a follow-up question, which was whether they were mixtapes or full albums that you were listening to when you would have your earbuds on.
Oh gosh, yeah, no, I didn't know how to mix. They were full albums, so I had I had about 5 or 6 full albums that I'd listen to. So I'd stay on the Eagles for a while, and then I'd go on to Pink Floyd or Bob Seger. It took me to a place when I was on the golf course, I was in bliss. I was either listening to the music, which I loved, that took me to a calmness, or it put me into the shot, which only took about literally 30 seconds to assess, execute, then get back to the mindset of listening to music. Trevino, when I interviewed Trevino last fall for my book, he told me, he says, Zogel, he says, you introduced those headphones to everybody. Now everybody's doing it. So I'm kind of going, well, yeah, you're not allowed to, it's against the rules now. You're not allowed to listen to the music on while playing golf, which I think is offensive. I'm a strong advocate for music, but not for other people to hear it, but it's just to hear it on your own. Try it. Go out there and put some music in your ears between shots sometime. I recommend everyone trying to do it. Perhaps you find your spot to do it. You will absolutely have a joyful day.
Yeah. Well, what a great way to end the episode. I mean, I think inspiring, great story. I look forward to so many more. As a quick wrap up, any thoughts you have from this week that we want to take to the bank?
Well, yeah.
Looking ahead,
I guess the quick one is that it's not that much news. We're not even talking about Scotty Scheffler making 3 eagles on the final hole to get where his C game gets him into contention. But let's see what Scotty Scheffler. Maybe Scotty Scheffler can get off to a good start on Thursday at Riviera this week. And Riviera is what a great golf course that is. And we'll find out what stories unfold at the end of this week.
Yeah. For me, obviously, the Anthony Kim story, I think, is just one that we're going to naturally follow from here forward and sort of see where it leads. It's going to be very, very interesting to watch, and I'm really interested to sort of see how the rest of the people around the tour, PGA Tour, look at Anthony Kim and whether they want to. I think at the end of the day, they can make a path for him to come back pretty quickly if they wanted to.
Well, how about this? So, why don't they, next week, if extend the sponsors exemption to Anthony Kim to play in Riviera?
Maybe. Ooh. Yeah,
I'd love to see that.
Interesting times. Yeah, and on that happy note, thanks to everybody. Thanks to Joe, our producer.
Thank you, Joe.
Thanks to Lost in Japan for our music, and another great week in golf and another wonderful discussion. So thanks. Enjoy Tough Lies, and we'll see you next week.
Thanks, guys.
Join us next week on the Golfers Podcast with Richard Zokol and Colin McDougall.